Good evening. It's week number 5. I was gonna do something on spellcasting this week, but actually I'm gonna be kind of short of time. So I thought I'd actually show some of my older D&D stuff. So this is what D&D used to look like back when it was brand new. So I was just gonna go through the stuff one by one and just kind of talk about it a little. I don't know the stuff terribly well. I mean, I grew up using first edition and then second edition, and this stuff is what people were using before I actually got into the game. I know it a little. I don't know it terribly well, but I'll tell you what I know. So before Dungeons and Dragons came this book right here. It's called Chainmail, and basically all it is just a rule for just what it says right here, rules for medieval miniatures, right? So there used to be a lot of wargaming societies back in the 60s and 70s, and they would just put miniatures out on a table, and they came up with these rules to simulate battles. And eventually this turned into rules. Gary Gakax, he set up a bunch of rules so that you could actually have medieval games. I mean, where you would be like fighting against wizards and dragons and stuff. And they did it all through, yeah, there's a bunch on elementals. They did it all through miniatures, you know. I guess there's probably some dice involved in it, but honestly speaking, I've never done it before. But I am looking forward to getting to know it. I'll study it out here pretty soon. I might give each one of these books its own episode. But then in 1974, this is what showed up. Actually, not exactly this. This is one of the newer ones, original collector's edition. The actual first ones that came out were brown. It had a wood grain texture to it, and those are all going for thousands of bucks on the net now. I just saw one get sold for $3,000. This is much newer, much cheaper, a lot easier to get your hands on. They still exist. Inside here, they had these 3 books, and these were all the basic rules. How to make characters, and then the monsters and the treasure, and then, you know, getting out in the world and looking around and seeing what was out there. It also came with these reference sheets. Think of it as like a DM screen before they realized they could turn it into a DM screen. It's so you can look up things quickly, which is actually kind of, I mean, I'm happy they did it, but when you realize these books are so small, you know, it's hard to need you can't really, sometimes you just can't feel the need to have a reference sheet to go along with it. And then an advertisement for the dragon, which was back then a new thing, which is kind of cool. When I was playing with Fred Funk, this is what he used, and that's all he used. In fact, this is kind of interesting. When he would play, I never saw him touch a book, not even once. He eventually gave me a set of these, and I was really happy to get that. This isn't that set. Anyway, he never touched them because he had memorized it all. He'd been playing for so long, he didn't need to touch them anymore. I mean, they've got random encounter tables in these reference sheets right here. I remember he would say, okay, let's have a random encounter, roll a die, and then, I mean, I was double checking. I had a set of these reference sheets of my own, and I was just watching what he did. And he knew exactly what was on each table. He knew exactly what we were encountering because he had memorized it all. Very interesting. Oh, one more thing. When you look at this book, Men and Magic, on like the first page, right? I guess not the first page, more like, what is that, page number 5? Right about here. It says recommended equipment, stuff that you should have, right? And the first thing that they mention is Dungeons and Dragons, you have it. But after that, the next thing that they mention is a game called Outdoor Survival. It's kind of weird that they actually suggested that you buy a product that they didn't even make in order to play this game. And that's what this is right here. So, Outdoor Survival. You can still get it on eBay. I think I bought this one for like $20. No one really knows what it is. It's just they put it on the first page of things that you need in order to play Dungeons and Dragons, right? So I went on to eBay and I bought myself a copy. It looks neat. it looks actually very cool. It comes with a big playboard, and I can't show it all to you because I don't really have the ability to lay it out on the table. I don't want to put stuff on top of these books. But it comes out with a big board like this, and you have to put your character down on one of these hexes, and then it gives you a scenario, like you have to go find water, or you have to go find food, or you have to find someone who's lost and bring them back to civilization. And somehow the rules, it's actually cool. It like teaches you how to survive in those circumstances. It's like the best game in the world for Boy Scouts. Anyway, I'm intrigued by it. I just haven't had the time to really get into it, but it's very interesting. So this came out in '74. This came out first in a magazine in 1970, and then they published it as like this, right? But this came out in '74, and then all the rest of these books came out within like the next couple of years. So this is Greyhawk. Everybody who's played D&D probably has heard the word before. It's the setting. It's the campaign that Gary Gygax himself developed, right? The thing is, this book doesn't have anything about his campaign in it. All it is just rules. It's just more rules, you know, monsters and treasure, and it's got 2 more classes in it. I believe it's the assassin. Let's see, the assassin, or no, the paladin and the thief. So thief began here. You didn't even have a thief in original Dungeons and Dragons, right? But I guess when I originally heard about this book, I was certain it was going to be a campaign setting, but it's not. It's just more rules, which is fine. When you look at it, you feel like you're looking through the DMG. And then this book came out, which is Dave Arneson's campaign. So Gary Gygax's campaign was called Greyhawk, and Dave Arneson, he had his own campaign that he did in the Twin Cities, Blackmoor, and this is the campaign that Fred Funk was in. So anyway, this also had a couple of new classes in it. This is where they first talked about the monk and the assassin. And this is also the book that has the first module ever made, the first module ever made for Dungeons and Dragons. It's called Temple of the Frog. And like I said, these books I've got them, but I just haven't spent a lot of time studying them yet. I'm looking forward to it. Okay, here's the bad boy on the table. I feel bad about showing this on the net because I'm a Mormon and that's a naked woman on an altar, so whatever. Sorry. This is just what they did. So here is the book where they came out with a new class called the Druid. And this is the first time that they talked about psionics and artifacts. And this is probably the biggest spot where D&D got into trouble, you know. Because starting here, for some reason, they started to talk about demons and devils. And, I mean, I kind of understand why they did it. They were just, it's another storyline that you could pursue. I mean, if you're going to get into fantasy wargaming, eventually somebody's going to talk about devils and demons. But, I don't know, they did it a little bit egregiously, in my opinion. Putting a naked woman on an altar, of course someone's going to give you problems for doing that, especially back in the 70s. Okay, gods, demigods, and heroes. This is, if you know what the dungeon, or if you know what legends and lore is, if you know what deities and demigods is, that's basically all this one is. It just lists all the different deities, all the different pantheons, like all the Roman gods and all the Greek gods and all the Japanese gods that you could theoretically put into your game. I've looked it over and it looks intriguing, but I got deities and demigods too. I think I'd rather use that. And then this is the last of the old books that I'm aware of anyway. Swords and Spells, and this is basically intended to be used either along with Chainmail or to replace Chainmail, to update what was in Chainmail. Because Chainmail isn't actually D&D. And so they were basically just trying to make a version of Chainmail that was compliant with D&D rules, I guess. So anyway, I just thought it's nice to see all the old books. So like I said, I just didn't have a lot of time this week. I'm sorry. I'll try to give you guys some more time next week when I do spell casting. Anyway, I'll talk to you next week. Thanks. Have a good week. Bye bye.